There are some strange assignments you get sent out on. Things you would never expect. Two of the strangest ones were individuals who I would say were urban cowboys. An 80-year-old guy dressed up like a cowboy was riding a horse coming across the Outer Bridge crossing into Staten Island and snarling up the traffic. And another story we heard about because there was a complaint from a neighbor who said this guy is keeping a horse in between our two houses, again on Staten Island. How many of those does he go through a day? 3 times a day. Circumstances make people interesting in one way or another, but what about these people's character makes them an interesting, story to follow? Some people thought Abdul was more of a privileged character, not just because his wife was a lawyer, a district attorney, and they were using the letter of the law to get what they wanted. It was also because the video that Abdul gave us of him going to the Dunkin Donuts and trying to order coffee, if you listen to the audio, to me, he wasn't like a sympathetic character after I heard in his own words how he was talking to this girl working in Dunkin Donuts, telling her that he was going to sue her if she didn't give him the coffee.
I will sue you if you don't take my order, literally. This is illegal, by the way. I don't know if you know that. By the way, she's an attorney. That's why I did this.
He was telling her that this is illegal transport. But if you listen to how he told it to her, he was like, I'm telling you, this is the law. You know, so you have to do what I say. I continued to cover the story in the same impartial way and just trying to gather all the facts. He wasn't as sympathetic to me as Doc. Like, the more I talked to Doc, the more I realized this guy was like very different from anybody else that I was talking to. He really kind of left the real world and he was off in some kind of dream world that really sounded good. But yeah, they were completely different characters doing, similar urban cowboy situations, I guess, in that they were taking horses for rides through New York City. When you look at the two stories, even I think that the 80-year-old Doc, he was much more interesting to read about or to just listen to as a reporter because he really was different. Turned out he wasn't some cowboy from 180 years ago. He was some guy from upstate New York who at some point in his life decided he didn't want to be what he was anymore and he wanted to be a cowboy. And he just started riding a horse across the country. He wasn't afraid of the cops. He wasn't afraid of criminals. He wasn't afraid of anything. He was afraid of the PETA people. He said because they wanted to take his horses away. I asked him enough questions and I listened to enough of his answers to know that he was living in some kind of like dream world, and the only thing that scared him the most were these people who were going to take his dream away. And in the end, that's exactly what happened. His horses got taken away by the exact people. Before they took them away, he told me exactly where they were gonna get him, where they were gonna take his horses away, and where they were gonna take them to. And it's exactly what happened. The biggest impression on me was the way that those two different stories elicited completely different responses from readers. There was the initial shock of, wow, that guy's crazy for having a horse at his house. And then you find out, oh, he can have a horse at his house because it's still on the books in New York City law. You can have a horse, but if your wife's a lawyer and you're not going to have any legal bills, then, you can do it. The story kind of started and ended in one story. The other story, interviewing him in the bushes and stuff along the highway and talking to him over the few days that I did get to interview him, I saw the difference in the reaction to the stories and the number of stories that were being called for. Like, people wanted to know what was going to happen here. It made an impression on me that you have these circumstances that are both odd, both bizarre, but what makes one character so much more interesting, and I think it has something to do with like that dream idea, a grown man is going to be able to be a cowboy. It was a good exercise for me in learning, which characters really capture the imagination of readers and which characters are interesting but are not going to create like a series of stories.